This is international boxing news in association with Vote Boxing. I'm joined by Richie Garner. Richie, how are you today, mate?
I'm not so bad. Thank you for asking. How about yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. First of all, let's get straight into it then. Obviously, you're heavily involved in kind of Craig Woodruff's career, obviously being his manager, and we know that kind of the rematch for the British lightweight title with Gavin Gwynne is next. Before we get into it, kind of the first fight I remember watching on the TV on Channel 5, very, very close fight, kind of
Oh, well,
hard to pick.
there's the crunch question, isn't it? I mean, I'm going to have to ask you the first question, perhaps.
So
How did you have it?
I had I
You
had
can
it
be
by
honest. You can be honest with me.
I did. I will be honest. I had it Gavin by 1 round. Might be a little bit biased towards me because Gavin was one of the first boxers we had on our channel. So I will forget. Please forgive me on that front. But I did. But I had it by a round, and I wouldn't have argued it going either way. That's genuinely my honest opinion. But um, my first question to you, obviously, you've asked me. I'm gonna ask you. Did you think Craig done enough on the night?
Yeah, I thought that the rounds, excuse me, when you've got a fight like that, where the fight swings both ways, sometimes there are some close rounds, and it's difficult to score. I didn't feel the rounds that went to each boxer were relatively close. The way that I felt about it was that the rounds were quite clear cut. It was either Gavin's round or it was either Craig's round. um, what surprised me the most at the conclusion of the fight is the fact that I think all three of the judges had Gavin winning the last round. I that for me was incredible because I thought that was one of Craig's best rounds. So to find out that all three gave that last round to Gavin was incredible. And as it turned out, I wonder whether it was in their minds that perhaps this was an exceptionally close fight, and if they had scored that for Craig, or even if they'd scored it a draw, then of course Craig takes the title by 1 round, because obviously he wouldn't have had that extra point over Craig that he would have had otherwise. But nevertheless, I accepted it was a close fight, but I felt that each of the rounds were very easy to score. They weren't tight rounds where you thought, oh, who am I going to give that to? And as a result, I had Craig winning by 2. Nevertheless, I said this to his face. I've said it to the rest of his training team, and I'm happy to confirm it here. I do feel that we really let an opportunity go because he dominated the first 2 rounds. Gavin barely put a glove on him for the first 2 rounds. And then, of course, he switched off 3, 4, and 5. And perhaps if he hadn't done that, then, it would have been a lot more conclusive in respect of the scoring. But he did. He switched off, and that's ultimately cost him. So, we do it again.
Was it a kind of case? Obviously, you get a lot of kind of discussions in boxing, kind of when there's a close round, the rounds will favour the judges will favour the champion, or kind of. Would you think there was a lot of that in that fight then, in the result?
I, I, I don't necessarily think so. Um, I agreed with a lot of the round scoring. Um, Terry O'Connell, he was the one who gave it to Gavin incredibly by 3 rounds. I haven't found a single person, even the people who scored it for Gavin, like yourself, like, oh yeah, Gavin by 1. I've had the odd person say, oh, Gavin by 2. Most of those people are from Merthyr. And of course, Gavin's not from Merthyr, but he hails, to be from Merthyr. He's actually not from Merthyr, but they call him the Merthyr Mexican. He's got a huge following in Merthyr, so it's hardly surprising that the Merthyr Massive are obviously going to say, Gavin by a round or 2. But yeah, I just feel that the rounds they were so conclusive in respect of one boxer or the other. I just don't think it was difficult to score. And like I said, if we'd had that last round, then we win. And I think that was only right. But I had Craig definitely 2 rounds up. Um, and it was disappointing for me, and especially due to the fact that guys like Craig, they're not supposed to win British titles. They're not supposed to win Commonwealth titles. I mean, the Commonwealth title was never on the line. That was made clear to me the day of the fight. And Gavin, I don't think Gavin even realised. I mean, he turned up to the final weigh-in bizarrely with the Commonwealth title, but not the British title. And as it turns out, the British title's on the line and not the Commonwealth. And it was all down very, very simply to the paying of sanctioning fees. And nobody wanted to pay the sanctioning fee for the Commonwealth to be on the line as well. And as a result of that non-payment, then Gavin gets stripped. But, it is what it is. Craig should have that title around his waist. But sadly, due to his switching off in the third, fourth, and fifth rounds, it wasn't to be.
No, perfect. And in kind of obviously the Commonwealth title, that was a bit of a weird thing. So I remember Wasserman kind of, I don't know if they changed their poster or they just said it was the British. And then we messaged Gavin, obviously, as I said, he was one of the first boxers we had. And he kind of just went, no idea, mate. They've just taken off me. And then about 3 weeks later, I think Sam Noakes fought for the title on the undercard of Parker Ryder, which was a kind of a really strange turn of events. But no, going on to the rematch, as we all know, I think it's kind of public knowledge that the rematch is next for both Gavin and Craig. Sorry, going into the rematch, kind of we all know that kind of I think it's on the board's website that Eddie's won the rights to the fights, and obviously there's heavy rumours that kind of it will land on Joe Cordina's undercard when he tries to reclaim his title against Shakmakat Rakhimov. The heading date is April 22nd. How likely is it to land on that card?
Exceptionally likely.
Perfect. Perfect. I can see from your reaction, don't want to give too much more away from that, mate. But kind of obviously with the first fight being in Bolton, I remember like that was a kind of two Welsh guys headlining for the British title. It seemed that you guys were a bit like, especially the Welsh boxing fans are a bit let down by that being in Bolton. But how big is that for the rematch to land in Wales on a card headlined with a world title, especially with Joe Cordina trying to reclaim his IBF world title?
It's a massive occasion, particularly for a fighter like Craig. Like I said, guys like Craig, they're not meant to win titles like this. I mean, the last time, and I appreciate very much that this is slightly different because it's not a world title. But the last time we had anything like this, where a fighter with a record similar to Craig's managed to upset and defy the odds, was, of course, Steve Robinson. I think John Davidson was supposed to fight, I could be wrong about this, Ruben Palacios for the WBO title. There were some medical complications as a result of that. They were looking for somebody last minute. Robinson steps in and obviously produces a world-class performance against a quality fighter and comes away with the title. It's kind of different. Very, very similar circumstances insofar as, the records are roughly the same. I kind of think that we were taken for granted on the first occasion. The madness of going to Bolton for that fight surprised everybody. I mean, to be fair to Gavin, I like Gavin. He's a really, really nice guy. He's a lovely kid, and I got a lot of time for him. And he took a big following up there. And the Merthyr guys were excellent to us. After the fight and what have you, saw him in the bar, had a chat with him, and what have you. even saw Gavin's sister and her partner, and bought them a drink, and they were really nice as well. But essentially. Craig took a little bit of a following, not quite as many as Gavin. He's got a bit more of a big following than Craig. But for this fight, I think that I'd be shocked if in Cardiff, Gavin does less than sort of 4, 5, maybe even 600 tickets. You'll have a big following there. Craig has never done well with tickets. But what you'll find is when sportsmen in Newport rise to the occasion, the city tends to get behind them. And I wouldn't be surprised if Craig triples or even quadruples the kind of tickets that he normally does for a fight. So I would expect the best part of 800 to 1,000 Welshmen from different sides to be congregating around the ring and screaming both of those boys on. Newport, Merthyr, it's not the worst combination. It's not Cardiff, Swansea, where they hate each other. So I'd expect a really, really good atmosphere, and for there to be no trouble, and for people generally to get on. And I think that it'll really really kick on, and especially at that arena. And of course, Joe Cordina, if we are on that undercard, fighting for the title, the main header. I mean, Joe he'll sell a bundle of tickets for Cardiff. He's an exceptionally popular guy. He's a great fighter. You know, he's next level fighter. He's absolutely incredible. Very, very disappointed with the circumstances under which he had his title ripped away from him after the spectacular fashion in which he won that title. I mean, the knockout was absolutely sensational. Surely, you know, knockout of the year. And a lot of people had Joe potentially losing that fight. I was glad he won it. He's from the same city as me. I'm a Cardiff boy. I know Joe really, really well. I know his family really well. I've known his dad for a little while as well. Absolutely fantastic to see him doing so well. And you know, when you've got Joe Cordina headlining a show, and then you've got obviously a British title fight undercard, and I'm sure that there'll be tons of Welsh talent on display there because there's so many decent Welsh lads coming through. Gary Lockett's got a thriving stable. Gavin Reese is doing really well. I've got a couple of lads who are quite tidy guys coming along, selling some tickets. You know, it's going to be potentially a great night.
No, it is, and I feel and touch on kind of the environment, obviously, Cordina's knockout against Agawa. I was watching it at home, and you could feel the atmosphere through the screen. I was at the Matchroom gym the other day, telling a few of the fighters that my brother wasn't in. I was recording the TV, and you kind of hear the crowd even through that. And I hope that we kind of get media for that fight, so I can obviously meet you there, Richie, hopefully. But no, and also obviously with that going into kind of the rise of Welsh boxing at the moment, obviously as we mentioned, you've got Joe, you've got Gavin, you've got Craig, and you've also got like kind of Lauren Price and Liam Williams kind of also bringing uh kind of Liam kind of obviously maybe in the last push for some big fights, but Lauren Price definitely on the rise. Kind of
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
are we seeing kind of now a new wave of Welsh boxing, bringing Welsh boxing kind of back to the top?
There's tons of talent in Wales, and I mean, I you know I could name loads and loads of good kids who are coming through, and they've got a little bit of a way to go. Brandon Scott, for example, absolutely fantastic fighter, lives in the gym, loves boxing, trained by Gavin Reese. He will be an absolutely fantastic talent, and I know he won't forgive me for saying this, but his mouth's almost as big as his punch. He's he's a shameless self promoter, but he's fantastic at it. And when you got that combination of self promotion and talent mixed in, you know, then you know that kid's going to do really well. You know, you've got kind of mid level fighters at the moment, guys pushing for local area titles and above. I got a guy that I managed called Jake Anthony. I'm looking for opportunities for him. You know, he's 8-1. His only loss comes in a Welsh title fight, which nobody pretty much thinks he lost, except for the judge on the evening. And you've got a couple of other lads that are coming through, you know, fantastic fighters, guys like Ben Crocker, guys like Kyron Jones, again, Gary Lockett stable. And there's tons of other kids who are kind of at that level now where they're pushing for local area titles. And then, you know, obviously you've got guys like Craig who are kind of next tier again, and fingers crossed will take home the title as a result of that fight against Gwynne, the rematch. And then moving just beyond that, then you've got next level fighters. Guys like Liam Williams, Joey Cordina. So there's a fantastic array of talent in Wales at the moment, and obviously it's doing well in respect of running shows and stuff. And I mean, you know, we got some good promoters. Gavin Reese has actually just got his promoter's license. So I think he'll be putting shows on in Wales soon. My friend Lee Eaton, he's putting on a lot of shows in Swansea, in Cardiff, particularly in Cardiff. You've got other people still involved. Mo Pryor's gone a bit quiet at the moment. But nevertheless, he's still in the mix, and hopefully I'll do something with Mo this forthcoming year. But you've also got other people in the mix, like Chris Sanagar still doing the odd show in Wales as well. And you know, it is thriving, and it's like I said, the important thing is it's thriving on all levels, from guys, hot prospects being built up, to guys area title level, guys pushing for British titles, and then of course guys who are just below or pushing onto that world level. So you know, it's fantastic across the board for Wales at the moment.
No, it definitely is, and obviously when you see it, also it's not just kind of having the stable and then having these fighters on all levels, as you said, but also kind of they're all on big TV deals now as well, so they're getting that platform to kind of showcase their talents. And I remember being really impressed by Kyron Jones as well on I think he was on the last Cordina
Sharp boy.
undercard. He's very, very,
Yeah.
very, very, very talented kid. And then also I mentioned before off camera that I was going to give you kind of your moment to do an Eddie moment and kind of go over the stable of fighters that you manage and you you help progress in their career. Obviously, you mentioned Jake Anthony there. Kind of touch upon that kind of the one loss that is on his record, but no one thought he did. Kind of touch upon that. When is he next back? And then also I've got Angelo Dragone and Inderpaul Singh as well. And any I've missed, rattle off what's next for them.
There's a couple of potential new signings in the mix. Some of them I won't mention, some of them I'll throw in there. But on the roster at the moment, obviously Angelo Dragone is looking to make a little comeback of sorts and return to the ring. Fantastic ticket seller. He's had two fantastic title fights for the local area title, the Welsh title. A lot of people thought he's very unlucky against Christian Twos, and of course he was beaten by Jacob Robinson. We weren't in the same frame of mind for Robinson, and I'm sure Angelo would agree that he hadn't had the same preparation for Robinson that he did for Twos, and he was found wanting. And if I'm being honest, I was perhaps a little surprised that the scorecards were as close as they were in respect of the Robinson fight. But nevertheless, we'll rebuild Angelo and we'll do a little bit with him. Um, we've discussed Craig already. I've also got Jason Sillett on the roster. He's coming off a loss, and I'm going to have a chat with him shortly, and hopefully I can persuade him to return, and we can rebuild him as well. Just moving on beyond that, I've got Inderpaul Singh, who's been granted his license, and we're just looking to get him out essentially. But there's been nothing significant which would be able to obviously find a place for him on a show. But I will say this: I'm just putting into the board this week my own application for a promoter's license. So hopefully I'll be working with some of the people that I've already discussed with you, maybe Gavin Rees if he's amenable to it, but definitely Mo Pryor, Lee Eaton, in respect to putting some more shows on in Wales. And there's some other people they're doing collaborations with as well. Another person I haven't mentioned, but I should mention because he's already put a few shows on in Wales and he's got some promising Welsh lads that he signed, is Pat Barrett, who's also been putting shows on and been assisted by my friend Gary Lockett. So we got all these good kids, but I've got some decent potential signings coming along. Some guys who have signed on the dotted line, but just want to get the Welsh Championships and a few more amateur fights out of the way. Guys like Oliver Didcott. Ollie's actually been training with me. And he's a product of Enzo Macronelli's gym. So you can imagine the type of quality training he's been getting at the Bonnymine gym under Enzo. He's been doing a bit in Port Talbot, and he's actually fighting this Friday. So for anybody who wants to watch him, then I guarantee you that he will be entertaining. He's an absolutely fantastic fighter. Ollie's one of those guys that when I take on the pads, I always come away with aching shoulders because he's just got natural, that thumping power, and he's got a great style, likes to roll his shoulders and move well. Of course, I've discussed Inderpaul. Inderpaul's got very limited amateur experience, but the stuff that he did do in the amateurs, he did really well. He actually left amateur boxing under a bit of a cloud after he stormed his way to the novice championship finals in Wales, and then was blatantly robbed of the win in the finals, which caused him to become a little bit upset. And he was disciplined by the WABA, which subsequently lent to him wanting to turn pro. It's been a long road trying to get Inderpaul a license for various reasons, but ultimately we've got that license and we're in a position now to get him out, and I guarantee he will be out this year. One of my most exciting prospects in respect of perhaps turning over is a guy who trains in Carmarthen with Kevin Evans. And I'm hopeful that I can get this kid a license when he's ready to turn, which I think will be this year. Former star amateur, and certainly a really hot prospect for the future in my mind if I can get him to turn over. I mean, he hasn't signed anything yet, but he is an exceptional talent, and he does train with us at the gym in Llanelli, and that is Samson Leeson. Samson is an absolutely incredible fighter. When I take him on the pads, it's not often I come away if he does body work, even with the body bag on. when I'm not bruised to bits. And yeah, I go home covered in purple and black welts. I mean, this kid's, he's a tall lad. He's about 6'5". He's weighing about 100 kilos at the moment, and he can really bang. But the most impressive part of his game is his footwork. The way he moves around the ring for a big fella is absolutely incredible, and he's still very young. I think he's only 23 years of age. So, some really good opportunities out there for some of these lads coming through, and I think you'll probably see them towards June, July, hopefully. Obviously subject to board approval, but yes, I mean, and there's tons of lads in the gyms that are doing so well at the moment, and there's so much great coaching out there because you've got all these guys like Gavin Rees, like Gary Lockett, who are there, and Enzo Macronelli, who I think has now got his pro trainer's license. Don't quote me on that, but I know that he was in the mix to get it because he's got all these kids in his gym. Just his gym is teeming with talent, and a lot of them they want to turn over, and unless you've got pretensions to obviously go to the Commonwealth Games or perhaps go to the Olympics, once you've got a certain amount of experience under your belt, I don't think you're going to learn anything more than you will learn perhaps sparring with the pros and kind of earning your ring craft in the ring with experienced journeymen. I'm not talking about knockover fights. I mean, you can have a couple of those against guys that are going to run all night, just to get used to the atmosphere and the build up and the environment of being in a pro ring. But ultimately, what you want is a solid journeyman who will test you a little bit. I mean, he's retired now, but I'm talking about guys like Willie Warburton. I'm talking about guys like Fons Alexander. Even guys like Curtis Gargano, who's a good friend of mine and one of the funniest guys in boxing, and is turning out to have one of the greatest gyms at the moment in respect of producing journeymen and one or two talents as well, one or two prospects as well. And Curtis is doing an absolutely stand-up job, and it's worth giving him a mention because after COVID, certainly there was a dearth of talent with a number of guys, a number of top journeymen who could test people retiring from the sport because after COVID, they just didn't have the desire or the hunger anymore because they hadn't had those periods where they were constantly active, constantly training, such as they would have been, obviously if shows were running as they would have pre-COVID. But nevertheless, like I said, then there's still some great kids out there. And another guy who's a solid journeyman who will turn over a result and test you if he can is Louis Van Pooch. Absolutely fantastic boxer. And if he smells a bit of blood in the water, then he's like a shark. He just goes for it. So there's still tons of people out there who can test a fighter and bring a fighter along. Guys like Lewis, and if their career is developed right, then these guys, they don't need to be in the amateurs forever. They need that. Yes, they do need a certain level of experience. Once they've passed that, then they can get that experience to take them to the next level, sparring with the pros, being in an active gym with lots of other pros, seeing how they perform, seeing how they train, seeing their dedication, and then of course getting that experience against solid journeymen in the fight, working up towards area level. And if you've got the right manager and if you've got the right trainer, then those guys will look after you and get you to those points, But it's about choosing the right team as well.
Definitely. I remember. I think I was talking to George Liddard and Jimmy Sains. Both of George Liddard just turned over pro with Tony Sims. Jimmy Sains is an amateur training at the Matchroom Gym, and they were saying, especially George, he was saying, was he gone over 1-0, but he spars Felix Cash and John Ryder. So he was like, he'd be lying to say the experience that he's got in the gym would be the same as kind of the people he's fighting in his first, say, I'd say 5 fights. Obviously, he's a talented
Yeah.
amateur, but he still needs to get used to the ring generalship of a huge
Mm.
crowd and all of his family watching. So no, you're right, and we'll definitely make sure to keep a keen eye out on the Richie Garner stable moving forward as well, mate. My final question, Richie. Again, thank you for your time today. How do we see the rematch going between Craig Woodruff and Gavin Gwynne?
Um, Being frank, um, Craig thinks he's got his number. He thinks he doesn't think he's going to leave it to the judges.
Perfect. Well, perfect, Richie. Thank you again for your time today, mate. And best of luck on if it is on April 22nd. Best of luck then.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Really enjoyed it. You take care.